the meeting to order at 6:02 and would like to read the public disclosure that we're still authorized by the governor's emergency executive order issued on March 12, 2020, that the Fort Bragg Unified School District Board of Trustees will conduct Board of Education meetings via video conference until further notice. The meetings will be streamed via Fort Bragg Unified School District Live YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. If you needed translation, please give Renee at the district office 72 hours in advance notice by phone or email. And I'd also like to share with the public our vision and mission for the district. Every student receives engaging and challenging learning experiences to reach their greatest potential and thrive in a diverse global society. Mission is FBUSD delivers exceptional, engaging, equitable, and collaborative learning opportunities for all students. So we do have action to report out from closed. We have 3 certificated staff. Leave of absences was approved 4-0. We have 1 trustee absent, Babcock. And then now we have 3.3, the approval of the agenda. Do we have anything to pull?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So moved. The next item is public participation of non-agenda items. Do we have any public comments?
No, there's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. And the next item is Patriotic Exercise by Vice President Mary Macala.
Thank you. So I had a poem that's going to be read. Either Becky or Renee is going to play it for me. It's by Amanda Gorman, the Junior Poet Laureate, The Miracle of Morning, and it's about everything we've all come through collectively of the world over this last 16 months.
I'm muted. I think that's going to be a bumper sticker I'm going to buy for the rest of my life. Renee, would you like me to play it, or are you going to play it?
I'm happy to play it if you'd like.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sharing your screen? Renee, because your earphones are in, we can't hear anything. So if you'd like me to play. So Renee, we still can't hear anything.
Something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad in his stroller taking a jog across the street.
How about if I just read it? It won't sound as good.
Out in the society, but there's something.
We can try it from my computer.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and stop sharing, Renee, please. Okay, Renee, if you would stop sharing. Thanks. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? Yay, here we go.
I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding a society storming, but there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog across the street. A bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosary. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more closely tethered. The question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend like light. We can't be broken even when we bend. As one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, schools, waiters, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite not in the lights, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also the moments that make us humans kind. Let every dawn find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing. In testing times, we became the best of beings.
Hey, everybody, stop clicking around.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. I do like her one statement, in chaos to find clarity. And that's definitely a good advice. So the next item on the agenda is acknowledgements. So if we could have Superintendent Walker present the donations and acknowledgements.
So we are fortunate to receive grant funds of $1,900 for the Redwood Preschool from First Five Quality Counts. It's a California grant program. We also received $2,500 in donations from the James G. Cummings Foundation to Fort Bragg High School to support the ASB track and field program equipment purchases. So thank you to both of those donors.
Great. And then number 6 is communication. Did anyone receive any communication since the last regular meeting of May 13? And it can even be ex parte, anyone you talked to. Mary.
Well, I spoke to someone today when I was getting my teeth cleaned. and she is a mom of a child in our district, and she said that she really appreciated, I'm sorry, that was a tough year. Anyway, the work we did as a board, and that she had acknowledged that it was really tough. And she acknowledged you, Becky, and just said that she was really, happy to have her child in our district and appreciated what we were doing. and acknowledge how tough it was. So
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Mary.
Any other board members? So I did receive a letter from an 8th grade student regarding field repair update, or what had occurred, what was the plan of action for fields. And I also had the same inquiry from a member of the public and / staff. And I did call Wendy about some budget questions this week. And that's all the communication that I received. So do we have any public participation on agenda items this evening?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. And so our next item is the reports. And this is the first agenda that we've put our board reports at the end. So the first report is Student Rep Zaid Bazer. Do we see him tonight?
I don't see Zaid here. And I know he put out an email to everyone, and I'm looking.
So
and I see that he's on the invite.
So I guess that's what I should have. I actually did receive that communication as well, but I was just CC'd. So he did say reach out to the admin for items to report, and he was planning to attend this evening as his last meeting for the school year. So I'm sorry that he's not here tonight, but I just want to thank Zaid for his commitment this year. He came each meeting, and he was he was a pleasure to have at the meetings. And I don't know the plan for our student rep for next year, but I do think it's in a rotation. So I'll reach out to the staff member that's helping us provide students, because it's been nice to have a student back. So thank you, Zaid, so much for your commitment this year, and I hope you have a great summer. 8.2 is a superintendent report.
So we'll start off with graduation. Basically, I just wanted to take a moment at the board meeting to congratulate the class of 2021, congratulate our 8th graders who will be our incoming freshman class, the class of 2025. All of us attended the ceremonies, and it was a pleasure to see all of you there. The graduation at Alt Ed, I just want to note, was at Piver Field for the first time. And I have to say, it was lovely. I thought that the bleachers provided a natural place for people to sit. I loved how the graduates came across home plate and sat over on the first baseline. I loved the decorations and how families were able to be on the field. It was really a lovely, lovely event. I'm not sure if they'll ever go back to Cotton, but on nice days, I would encourage Piper Field again. It had a wonderful feel. Folks were able to move into the alternative education schools quad for their refreshments. So it was a lovely evening. It was a lovely event. I was incredibly impressed with our 8th graders. We made it all the way through, and they did a great job as well. And then the high school, bless the high school seniors. Let's just say that out loud. Their 8th grade promotion 4 years ago, it had sprinkled. We made it till about 6 o'clock, and then it started to sprinkle, and then it got a little heavier. And the kids were in incredible spirits and rolled with the punches, and we made it through. It was an incredible night, and it was great to see all of their smiling, wonderful faces. So we made it through graduation. Thank you all for being there, and thank you all for your patience, and to our community for enduring that wonderful sprinkle of Fort Bragg. Next, do you want me to just keep going, Diana?
Sure. And then TLC also had a graduation.
Of course.
Yes.
We had two graduates at TLC there. They are our Transition Learning Center. What's really lovely about that graduation is that the students who are graduating are 22. So we have been with them for a long, long time. So I was able to see 2 of our graduates who I remember as freshmen, and just so lovely to see them as young adults. So it was a very sweet, very touching event. Many people were there, and I was also able to see the beautiful work that TLC is doing in their garden. So many great things are happening in Fort Bragg Unified, and TLC is absolutely part of that recognition as well. So thank you.
Great. And I just wanted to also thank the staff and the family, the class of 2021, all the parents that helped make this year special for the kids. Because there's a lot of behind the scene work that goes on, and all the speeches were wonderful. I think this year, I think we were blessed with a great group of kids, like every year. But everyone it was very positive. It was, even though it rained, it was kind of cleansing, I guess. So I just want to thank the community for helping make it special for the students.
Well, and acknowledging our parents who did the behind the scene events that the district couldn't sponsor this year. So all of those little things really do show how our community is the village that helps raise our children. So thank you to the parents who did so much. It was a memorable event, and I know our kids had a great time. So thank you. Our young adults, I should say. Would you like me to keep going, Diana?
Yes, please.
Okay, so summer school update. So a couple of updates right now. We have right around 300 students who've enrolled in summer school. The first day of summer school, attendance was a little spotty, but we had the majority of students there. I want to just make a brief announcement about summer school. We sent a parent square message right around 5 o'clock regarding Juneteenth. So the federal government passed into law that Juneteenth, June 19th, would now be a federal holiday. And June 19th is in really commemoration and celebration of the last day of slavery. It is slavery emancipation. It is, when you think about it, it's pretty symbolic. It is pretty incredible. So with the passing of Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, the federal government made it effective immediately. So that left us a little bit scrambling, because what should be happening is that we should all have tomorrow off. What's difficult for us is we have summer school tomorrow. There is too great of a risk to just say we're not going to have school tomorrow and automatically observe it. I am incredibly worried about having our little ones at bus stops unattended and waiting for a bus, and moms and dads maybe going off to work and not having their children accounted for. So with that, because of the short notice, because of this last minute proclamation, we are going to hold school tomorrow. We're going to work with our families so that everyone has communication that is very clear, and we're going to observe Juneteenth next Friday on June 25th, and we'll close school at that point. So we need to give people a chance to arrange for childcare and make sure that their kiddos are covered. We also need to make sure that our kids are safe. So please understand that we absolutely want to honor Juneteenth. We need to do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize the safety of our kids. So that's what's going on with summer school. The summer food service week. Any questions on that? I'm sorry, I'm just moving along. Yes, so Diana.
To clarify, it has to happen this fiscal year. That's the other reason why you're trying to pick that perfect day for families, but also that it needs to happen before July 1, the holiday.
It's supposed to happen tomorrow.
Right.
So we're trying to do this in this fiscal year so that we can show that we are observing Juneteenth. Again, the whole premise with this is about keeping our kids safe. This is not about trying to make people lose a holiday. This was all fast and furious and news to all of us. So we're trying to do our absolute best. It makes sense to do it this fiscal year, and it makes sense to do it in the month that it should be observed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Summer school food service. Yesterday was our first summer school food day. It only happens at Redwood now. So if families would like to pick up a food bag for their children ages birth to 18, they can drive through Redwood on Wednesdays between 11 and 2. Dana Gray is serving lunches to all of our summer school kids, and it's part of our summer feeding program. So families can also go to Dana Gray and get a lunch for their kids if they need it or if they want it. So the summer food service program is up and running. We will be running food services every Wednesday through July 28th. July 28th will be the last day that we provide meal bags, and then we'll go back to regular school feeding when school begins on August 18th. Any questions about that?
So it's still 11 to 2, the time?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the food bank provides food boxes still on Wednesdays from 12 to 3.
Okay. Thank you for the staff for both summer school and summer food. families are very happy. I've talked to a few families at summer school, and there's joy. There's joy in learning. So it's the purpose of it. So it's pretty amazing. So thank you for signing up for that.
Thank you. Next, we have our school site construction update. So next Wednesday at the next regular board meeting, we'll have a little bit more details for you. QKA is our architect, Katroki Kwok. They will have some plans for us to look at in regards to alt ed. There's been some adjustments. They've been able to walk that property. They've been able to do some measurements, and they believe that they can fit 8 classrooms, an administrative building, and a student services building on the site in a 1-story model rather than a 2-story model. I think some people were excited about having a 2-story building. Those of us in the administrative side were not so excited about that, but we were concerned about cost, and we were concerned about stretching our bond dollars as far as we could stretch them. A 1-story building has a considerable cost savings to us. We also won't have to have a required elevator or a lift. So that helps as well. So next Wednesday, when we convene, I will have some maps for you to review so you can help decide how you would like the layout of alt ed. I'll be sharing that with Connie, and if her team is available, they can definitely jump into the meeting and see what we're looking at prior to the board meeting. We'll also discuss with you what's happening with Redwood. Right now, the campus is preparing for the removal of all the portables. There was some drilling work that happened the last couple of weeks, and I believe that's been completed. So once we meet on the 23rd, I just wanted to give you an update on where we are. Construction is starting to move forward. You may have a question about the shade structures. We're starting to move forward with that as well, but moving forward is a very loose statement. Everybody needs to know that. We have to get through DSA, Department of State Architects. We have to have QKA do the accessibility reports before anything can move into the ground. So we are hoping to have the shade structures up within a year, and we're hoping to have the portables at Redwood removed by August, and then to have construction begin sometime in September or October. So there's many things happening. It may not look like it's moving, but it is moving. The paperwork is a little bit slow. What's wonderful is that we have a construction manager. That happened this week. So we're excited about that. Wendy, am I missing anything?
Well, he will probably join us in the August meeting to meet you all and give you a little bit of an update once he gets his feet wet into our programs and our projects, so he can catch up and get a little up to speed. The other piece with the shade structures is that we have submitted a request for approval for a capital expenditure using some of the COVID relief money. So that's another piece that has to happen.
Any questions?
So that approval for the funds, is that for June 23rd or for August, Wendy?
I have no idea. I submitted it
Okay.
with the quotes and the explanations for what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it appears to meet all of the allowable uses for the funds. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I just don't know how long it's going to take them to get through it, because I'm sure everybody in the world is submitting them. Okay. So.
And that approval is not for you, the school board, Diana. It's for
it's just from CDE, because it's a something over $5,000. So we have to request approval for it.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the construction?
Okay, zipping along, the tier system. So the tier system was successfully dismantled on June 15th. What that means for us in a school system is that we still need to wear masks. That Cal OSHA order came out, well, that vote happened today. Is that correct, Wendy? Am I saying that?
Yes.
So that happened today. So when folks say, well, we don't have to wear masks, no, you do, because we're part of the K-12 public school system. So masks are still mandatory. With that, we are still able, as of right now, the belief is that we are going to be able to return to school as normal on August, with the exception of the masking order. So the masking will still be in effect. So with that, we have no more tier system. We still have the Bionex tests that we can provide to families, to staff. We have ordered more Bionex tests so that we can continue with COVID testing in the fall. Those tests are being given to us through our county of public health. And right now we are looking forward to a normal return with masking come August. We're looking at full days, 5 days a week, with the times that we had given you back at the May board meeting. And we can review those times again when we get closer.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. And the last item is the independent study.
So we had a Google form go out. We put it out twice to families and just said, if you have an interest in independent study, then please fill out this form. So we had 59 people, 59 families express interest on behalf of their students. We are exploring how many students we can support in independent study. Staff will be contacting parents next week regarding independent study. At this point, we don't have enough interest to support independent study in grades kindergarten 1 and 2. I will be contacting those families tomorrow. So we are anticipating some type of support for independent study. I apologize, I've got the street out here. And our high school program, Juliet Anderson will be contacting families so that they understand what a high school program independent study is like. Oftentimes, independent study at the high school, once kids get into it, it's not super popular. And it's not super popular because it's incredibly rigorous. The auditing for independent study is intense. And just to give you an idea, we only have 1 student returning to independent study at Fort Bragg High School next year. So I don't anticipate that the 26 students who have requested independent study, I don't anticipate that all 26 of them will stay. It's not distance learning. It's not what they received in distance learning. It's 20 hours plus a week of audited work. So phone calls will be made to families next week, so they should anticipate hearing from FBUSD staff.
So does that mean that 33 were elementary school, were under 2nd grade, or that's not really?
So we had 25 students in grades 3 through 8. Okay. We had 26 students in grades 9 through 12.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Okay. Thank you for reporting. So the next item on the agenda is CSEA report. Do we have a report this evening?
No, there's no report from CSEA.
Okay. And then FBDTA?
And there's no report from FBDTA.
Okay, none. And moving on to approval of agenda consent items. These are non-controversial items on the consent agenda are passed in one motion without discussion. And if anything needs to be pulled from the agenda, we need to do this before the motion to approve. So the only item I'm looking at is 9.4. I think we might have to pull that and put it to the next meeting because I haven't seen any contracts. So that 9.4 might need to be put on the 23rd. Did anyone else review or find an item?
No, there may not have been any so this is going to become a regular monthly item on the consent calendar for contracts, just to keep you apprised of everything that's going on. And it may be that there just weren't any for this particular meeting. So it's kind of a new thing. So we didn't pay attention to pulling it off if there weren't any. So. Okay.
So I guess we should pull it though, because there's nothing in it, but that I like that idea that if there's a contract, it'll go in that item. So pulling that item 9.4, Mary, if you could read the items that are in the consent, and then we'll ask for a motion.
Okay, item 9.1, warrants. Consider approval of warrants dated May 31st, 2021. Item 9.2, the minutes for the May 13th, 2021 regular board meeting, the May 24th, 2021 special board workshop, and the May 27th, 2021 special board meeting. Item 9.3, the personnel action report, consider approval of district employment. We're removing item 9.4. Item 9.5, obsolete materials and equipment, consider approval to dispose of district obsolete items. And item 9.6, agricultural career technical education incentive grant 2021-22, consider approval of the agricultural career technical education incentive grant annual application for the school year 2021-22.
Great. May I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent items with item 9.4 being removed.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Seeing none, so moved. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the public disclosure of the local control and accountability plan for 2021-20. Is it 23 or is it just 22? Just for the 1 year? It was 3.
It's a 3-year plan.
It's a rolling 3-year plan.
Okay. So should we say it's, okay. So that's also, we also call it the LCAP. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:33. And Superintendent Walker, would you like to just go over sharing your screen for the summary, or maybe the parent summary page, just to go over the highlights of what's different from last year's? And this was presented at the last meeting as a first read. And I do like the background on the cover page stating that this is actions and expenditures to support pupil outcomes and overall performances, and that this is a comprehensive planning tool. So with that, if you could provide a summary of this particular LCAP. And
another thing people should be aware of is the infographic and the parent overview budget. Those two pieces are in the process of being translated. I'm not positive we'll have them for adoption next week, but they will be available soon, and we will put them on the website when everything's done.
Okay. And then once it's you go over the summary, then we'll ask for any questions from the board, and then ask for any public comments, and then we'll close the public hearing.
So there is a delay, President Paley, so I would request that we pause for a little bit to get caught up to the delay. It's about a 20-second delay, but this will allow, before you close out the public hearing, to just give a little bit of a pause in case there is public input. I will share my screen so folks can see what I'm talking about here. And if you could give me a thumbs up when you're able to see this.
And there are, so everybody knows, there are still a couple little spots where we didn't have budget information yet. I'm collecting it, so when we put the final piece together in your packets tomorrow, those should all be filled in. So
this LCAP is for this year, but it is a rolling 3-year plan. The state priorities are all met. This is part of the infographic that will be translated into Spanish. We have a little under 1,800 students, 5 schools, 270 staff. For increased college and career readiness, our actions, our first goal is to increase college and career readiness. Our actions are implementing digital portfolios, implementing Avid for grades 6 through 12. We have just hired a college and career specialist. That person will be Eve Yeomans. She transferred into the position, and we notified her, I believe it was yesterday we notified her. So that's exciting. Dual enrollment, we will continue with dual enrollment. We are going to support our students with college application support. We're hoping to hold some Saturday schools in order to help kids outside of their sports time, outside of their school time, outside of their assets time. So that was effective a few years ago. We hope to bring that back. The Get Focused, Stay Focused curriculum we continue to do with our 9th grade. The bilingual family liaison, we have hired one bilingual family liaison. That person is Martha Lopez. We are excited to have her on board. We will be holding interviews for the second position next week. Big Picture Learning is the project-based curriculum that alternative education is using right now. And Wendy, I'm going to ask you to mute. If you
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then we continue to support our CTE programs. The second goal is to increase student academic achievement. The big purchase for us is the leveled literacy intervention program. It is the Fountas and Pinnell reading program. We're very excited about that. We hired additional intervention teachers to implement the program. We have more credit recovery that we are going to be providing next year. Anchor Academy is still very much a part of that. We have more instructional assistants. Our EL coordinator and bilingual instructional assistants are part of our LCAP. Our foundation and essential classes are also part of this goal. The instructional coaches, we've been able to maintain our school counselors because of this goal. We continue to have ongoing professional development with Kelly Smith and restorative practices. We'll also be including our kudos team on that and our assets team. We increased our library assistant. Instead of having one person share middle school and Dana Gray, we now have one at each site. And then we're supporting our after school programs with more support with professional development. The third goal is the improving school culture. The bilingual family liaisons add to that. Our library updates add to that. We are looking at all the books in the library. So if you look at this and say library updates, $30,000, we are looking at the books in the libraries. Renee's been helping with this as well. And we are looking to improve the collection and make them more up to date. We have books in our libraries that date to the 1940s and the 1950s. Not that those books aren't valuable, they just aren't current with our times. So we're looking to update our libraries. Continuing to support PBIS is also part of this goal. Increasing our social emotional learning opportunities is part of this goal. Link Crew, Web, Pod Squad, these are all peer mentoring groups. That's part of this goal. Student mental health supports, this is the additional counseling that we are providing through Hallie Devrill and her team. The athletics program, we've put into this goal to increase not only school culture, but to increase family engagement. And that's by removing the fee for the ticket prices for families to attend our games. They are all going to be free. And then our social worker, we're using our foster homeless youth money to invest into a social worker. We talked with Lucretia Renteria today, and the social worker that they just hired has accepted, actually has a place to live for a few months while they find a home. So that's pretty exciting. So we have a social worker on the way. This just gives you an idea of the stakeholder engagement. And then we go into the overview for parents on the data. So all of this is in your board packet. I'm going through it quickly just because it's 137 pages. 133, excuse me, I overshot it. So we have the budget overview. This graphic, I don't know, Wendy, if you'd like to talk about it, but it gives you a general idea of where our funds are going and how they are being used.
Yeah, this just breaks it out, visually, so you can see the how much there is shown in the LCAP. And again, this is a piece that will be translated and uploaded to the website.
Okay. So the budget overview for parents, the total budget, general fund and expenditures, our budget is a little under 25 million. And then in the LCAP, it's 1.7.
And that's because we generally focus in the LCAP on those items that are supporting our unduplicated count. And so all of those dollars that we're planning to spend are in there. And well, not all of them, all of the ones associated with supplemental concentration dollars are in there.
So this is the prior year expenditures. And this is the actual plan now. On page 14 is where we go into what we discussed last year. At the last meeting, again, the goal, the metrics that we're going to use to measure our goal, the baselines. These are all part of the metrics. Again, it gives you some of our data so you could look and see how we did the previous year. Lots of metrics, good things to look at. And then our actions and services as presented, as I read earlier from that summary page. So I'm going to skip through this. This is still part of the overview. There's goal 2. And the only thing that I changed in the plan, let me move through that quickly. There was a discussion about our story, and so I adjusted that. I don't know if you want to see this. This was the learning continuity in the attendance plan, the budgeted funds, and what we used.
And that's so the where the dollars went moved around a little bit, but the total dollars spent were very close to what I think 96% of what we had originally presented in the plan in April.
And this was all in our learning continuity plan that we presented earlier in the year. The distance learning program, the analysis of that, actions related to pupil learning loss, the interventions programs, the mental health, what we did for mental health and family engagement, the nutrition services program, and how we provided the seamless summer feeding all year, and then additional actions and plan requirements. All of this we've discussed. I'm not sure how much depth you want me to go through all of these pages.
I think page 66 is the next, if someone really wants to dive in to the plan. It goes into your general information where you updated the history, and it clearly states, what's occurred last year, which you did a great job. It's very clear where we were and what you're supplementing.
So I named our major employers. The City of Fort Bragg, Adventist Health, grocery stores, and FBUSD are the largest employers in our region. And then all of this is the LCAP that was presented at the last meeting. There was no other change other than changing of the story, which I had modified that per your request.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions about the LCAP? And this is we had the first read last meeting. This is our public hearing, and then we will have it on Wednesday's meeting for approval. So there's still time to tweak it. Mary, Trustee Makala.
Hi. Yeah. On toward the beginning, under the increased college and career readiness, we had renamed that position to the career and college specialist. And
okay.
I think we ought to put in there that this is the James G. Cummings Career and College Center, because they did really give us all the money to get that up and running.
Okay, so let me get into that. So
it's item 1.3 under the goal 1.
I changed it on the job description.
Yeah.
I changed it in the report, and I forgot to change it in here. Okay, I'll make a note of that and get that changed.
Okay, and I just think we should put James G. Cummings Career and College Center because they did donate so much.
Okay.
And the only other thing, I just wondered if we should, for people watching, because I found out there's more people watching than I realized, that if we should just clarify again what an unduplicated count is, because I don't think people generally know.
So when we talk about our unduplicated count, we talk about our students who qualify for the supplemental and concentration funding. So there are three groups. There are English learners, there are socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and then our foster homeless youth. And when we talk about the unduplicated count, we talk about the number of students who fit in one of those three categories, unduplicated. So if I am a student who is an EL learner, an English language learner, and I'm socioeconomically disadvantaged, and I'm a foster homeless youth, I'm not going to get counted 3 times. I'm going to get counted 1 time. So that's the unduplicated count. So when we look at the unduplicated count in our district, I believe it's 82%. Is that right, Wendy?
It was 82 last year. It's been hovering around 80 since we started doing having all families fill out the family income form.
So just a smidgen over 80%, but that means that 8 out of 10 of our students qualify in one of those categories. Some of them may be in 2 or all 3 categories, but 80% of our students are in at least one of those categories. That's the unduplicated count.
Thank you for doing that. I think it's important.
Other board members, do you have questions? Trustee Snyder.
It's not really a question. I just want to thank you for all of the pages at the front that just give a really good, clear picture of the document and at a high level. And it's easy to read and understand, at least easier to understand. So thanks for all of that effort.
Thank you.
So the only question that I had is, this is supplemental concentration funds, but did I read in that maybe there was one-time money in here also? If a program's working, then I don't know if there's any coronavirus or corona relief funds.
Yes, there are a few items that are because they address the needs of those students, and they're programs that we are very much hoping will be successful and will be able to fund with supplemental concentration dollars once the COVID relief money is gone. If it does turn out that these programs are working, then that's why we decided to put them in the LCAP, since it is a sort of rolling 3-year plan, so that it's not where did this come from all of a sudden? So we can show that it's something we've been doing, even though we're using other dollars for it in the beginning. And this template is different because it used to be that you showed all 3 years and how you were going to fund it. It doesn't do that now. It just shows really kind of 1 year, and all of it will kind of roll over if we want it to. And then we can look at each thing again and say, okay, that really wasn't working. Let's do something else. Or this is doing great. Yes, we paid for it with one-time money, but we can roll it into supplemental concentration now.
Great. So there's room for adjustments for next year. So that
Absolutely.
Right. So this is a working tool, comprehensive planning tool, but it can be amended next year to reflect the needs of the unduplicated count.
Yes.
So those are the questions from the board, and the public can ask clarifying questions. I don't know if anyone is out there that has questions. This plan is still needs to be approved by the board next board meeting, which is Wednesday, the 23rd. So there's still time to review and give input, but we'd like to pause to see if there's any public input.
So right now, President Paoli, we have no public input. And Mary, just so you know, I will have those corrections made prior to the vote next week.
So do you feel like we've given this a good 20 minutes? Do you think that the pause has been provided?
You mean 20 seconds, right?
20 seconds. Well, it's been 20 minutes since we've had this open for public hearing.
I believe that it's been sufficient time.
Okay, very good. So I will close the public hearing at 6:51. Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing for public disclosure of the budget 2021-22. So I believe our CBO, Wendy Boyce, will present the budget?
Yes. So the budget you've been presented with is the layman's version of the budget because it's an easier layout to read than the official document, which is what you'll actually be approving next week. And in the front of it, I put some notes about, what is included in here, all of the effects of the tentative agreement that you'll be ratifying, hopefully at the end of the action items have been included there. There's a lot of staffing changes. We have always have some unfilled positions, but we have them budgeted in there even though they're not filled yet. So there are little things that might change. For instance, just because we have a position budgeted at a certain level, they may come in with more credits or less credits, and so those dollar amounts may change. We have about half of the new coronavirus relief funds in there. And the reason I didn't put all of them in there is, one, I know that they're not all coming in this coming year. And two, the not tenuousness of it, but the uncertainty of some of the rules and decisions about using some of them. So we'll be updating the budget as we go into the year for those items as we formalize the things that we're going to do with them. So not all of it is in there, but a good bit of it is. The changes based on the governor's May revise are in here. And again, the legislature has adopted per their requirement, otherwise they don't get paid, a budget, but now they're hammering out all of the gives and takes on it. There were some differences that could be beneficial to us. For instance, the legislature, their version does pay off the deferrals. The governor's revised didn't. So they're hashing that out now, and hopefully by the end of the month we'll know, but probably not in time to adopt a budget. So we'll work with what we have for now on that. And that's generally what everybody advises us to do, is to work with what the May revise is. And it does include all of our known increases in costs. For instance, we know our insurance went up a little bit. We know our unemployment insurance went up a lot. Our health insurance went up just 3%. And so all of those known differences are in there. The things that aren't in there yet are things that, and these are some things from the governor's budget that might happen, but there really isn't any information per district about what they're going to look like. For instance, the CTE funding, it's looking more and more like that's going to be an ongoing amount, but the amount by which it's going to increase and the amount that our district will be impacted by that, we have really no idea. There are kitchen grants that they're talking about. And again, there was a minimum amount that they said would go to each district, but then there's more on top of that based on your unduplicated count, but we have no idea what that's going to look like or if it's going to make it through their the final budget. And then all the talk about universal TK and preschool. And again, there have been a lot of large numbers thrown out as a part of the total budget, but absolutely no details about what it might mean per student, per district, or anything. But those are things that are likely to happen in some form, but we just didn't have enough details to put anything about that in the budget yet. And like I mentioned before, some of the coronavirus relief funds I have not added in here yet. And again, some of that is because I know they're not going to come in during the coming year. They'll be coming in the subsequent year. And then right now, one of the bright spots of the pandemic is the reimbursement rate for our food service was higher this year than it usually is. And because we also fed so many kids all year, whether they were our students or not, we were allowed reimbursement for all of that. So there is a small amount in next year for for a small contribution, but it's going to go away because we're going to end up with a surplus this year. Because the way the state system works is, for when you're preparing your budget, the estimated actuals are based on budget. And so we always budget most things to zero. And then we figure out what we have left over or what we have to shore up for our unaudited actuals. And that's when we look at the actuals. So this is still based on just budget numbers. So for that reason, it's going to look like there's a small contribution to nutrition services next year, but that is going to go away because there is going to be a surplus this year. So there are, I'm sure you've all pay attention to what's going on in the world, and there are some concerns about inflation, but there's some disagreement about whether that's going to be real and ongoing or whether it's a short-term issue because of supply and demand. There are a lot of things that are costing more right now just because the raw materials aren't available because factories were shut down and that sort of thing. And what some people are surmising is that in the not too distant future, they will catch up with the supplies, and so they will be able to keep up with the demand. So there are a lot of people are thinking that this is a short-term inflation issue, but it still could impact us in this coming year. And if they're wrong, then it's going to impact us longer than that. But things like utilities, supplies, like I said, they're in short supply, and so the cost of a lot of them are higher than usual. And then it was difficult to build on a base for next year, looking at just this past year, because it was such an odd year. And so I really kind of went back to the last time we had a budget for a complete normal year for my starting point, and then built on top of that, knowing that we would have some cost increases. And it's because of all of these uncertainties, there is a pretty healthy bottom line there that is nice, for one thing, because of the potential deferrals that may or may not happen. If they don't, that's great. If they do, then we're all set and we don't have to borrow any money against it. And then, with the volatility and the cost of things, it's nice to have some extra money around in case the inflationary things do continue and we don't get back to sort of normal on some of those things. And the other thing that you'll notice is that in the third year out, with the costs of the agreements and other things and the changes in the revenues, that we are deficit spending by a fairly large amount there, but we have, that's 3 years away. So we have ample time to make any structural changes that we might need to address that if it comes to that. But it may just work itself out because, as we know, we always have a lot of positions that we fly and nobody fills. So we end up with a little extra at the end of the year from those kinds of things. We usually end up with not as many, some of our part-time people not taking benefits. So there's a cost savings for us, but when we don't have them in place yet, we budget assuming that they are going to. So there are a number of things, and there are a number of things that are just unknowns. Like we have no idea what our substitutes cost is going to be this year. It's been 2 years since we had, almost 3 years now since we've had a normal year. So we don't know what that level is going to be. We've guesstimated it as best we can. It may come out less than what we put in there. It may come out more. We just really are just flying in the dark on that one. So I don't know if you wanted to look at anything in particular. There are a few things that have already changed a little bit. So when you get the final packet tomorrow, you'll see some numbers updated. But overall, the bottom lines are pretty close to what's here. Just some of the details have shifted a little bit.
So, board members, do you have any questions for Wendy? Trustee Metzen.
So how are we doing on our additional reserve fund? Are we too early?
Thank you for asking that. We're actually putting enough in there to almost bring it up to the 6%. And if there is enough, well, there actually is. I can look at it. We just don't know until we get to our unaudited actuals what that number is, but I think it's going to be right there.
And that's 3% or 6% above?
6% above the reserve for economic uncertainty, the required.
So what is that amount?
9?
Roughly?
So it's about 1.5 million.
Does that include the 3% that we're required to have, or the?
No, that's the 6%. The board required 6%.
Right.
So the reserve for economic uncertainty is actually going to be almost 800,000, I think, next year. But then it's going to go back down a little bit because as we stop spending all of these big amounts from the coronavirus relief dollars, that reserve for economic uncertainty will go down as well. And so I think once we get to the end of this roller coaster, we'll be right at about 6% in the.
So what's the standalone number for the voluntary reserve fund that we created?
It's going to be about 1.5 something when we make the transfer at the end of this year.
Wow, that's great.
Yep.
It's not 17% though, is it?
No, it's not. But 9% is fine.
Right.
I'm real happy with 9% after we have so many years of just 3.
Well, in 2018, there was just 3. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So just a question on that, since you brought that up. With the deficit spending, does that reflect the reserve, the 6% reserve that's above the 3 that's mandatory? Does that number get the deficit?
You don't see that number in this form of the document. You'll see it in the formal packet that is the state approved forms that is in there. But with the layman's budget that you're looking at now, that's really just our general fund. And at the bottom of it, it does show the transfer out to the board reserve. But that's the last time you'll see it in our general fund, unless we ever need to go into it.
So I was wondering if the 1.2 in the third year out actually would be more, because it's already doing the accounting saying that it's using some of our reserve, but we don't even touch it on this document.
No, because we don't need to. I mean, we still have money left at the end of that. And so even though we're deficit spending by that much, we still have a fairly reasonable balance at the end.
So with another reserve, I see on the bottom, supplemental concentration on the combined column, which is, I think, page 9 on my document.
So that's the amount by which that we may or may not have budgeted out in those 2 years. I have this year's figured pretty closely, next year's figured pretty closely, and you can see that we're catching up quite a bit. It's just been hard with the last year and a half to try to do new, more, better when we're just trying to hang on by our fingernails with distance learning. So we'll be catching up with that. And like I said, with some of these programs that we're sort of test driving using coronavirus relief funds, once those hit our general fund, if we decide to keep them, we'll have some supplemental concentration in reserve too.
Okay, and I have one more question, then I'll ask for other questions from board members. So the declining enrollment shows, because our ADA will expire to hold harmless as of the end of this June.
No, we're okay for next year, for 21-22.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's each year gets looked at, and because we were allowed to use the higher amount this year, kind of held harmless as though those students actually were here. We get to do that again for 21-22. It's 22-23 where it falls off a little bit. There is a COLA assumed to be in there, so we're still getting a little bit more money, but not as much more as if we had all of those students come back. And we budgeted for quite a few of them to come back, but we know that quite a few left the state, and we don't know if they'll be backfilled by students moving in. So again, it'll be very interesting to see in the fall what we actually have for numbers. And that will form our out years better as well.
Okay, but you did show a decline in the third year, just to be
yeah, and that's based strictly on, we usually estimate about the same number of kindergartners starting every year, but we have some larger classes moving out with smaller classes filling them in. So I always look at each year how many students are moving to each grade, and there are some grades where we know we lose a couple, and there are some grades where we pick up because of the charter school only going to grade 8. We know we pick up some more kids in grade 9 than we had the year before in grade 8, and things like that. So I do a whole analysis of the out years of anticipated enrollment based on the numbers we have now.
Okay, thank you. So board members, do you have questions for Wendy Boyce? Any other? Okay. Well, thank you so much for the report. This is a public hearing for the disclosure of the budget 21-22, and we did open it at 6:52. So do we have any public comments regarding the budget?
No, there's no public comment.
So is it fair to close at 7:07? Very good. So the public hearing is closed at 7:07 p.m. and this will also be brought to our next meeting for approval, which will go to the county first after we approve it.
Yes, it goes to the county after you approve.
And this will be on for our action item Wednesday, June 23rd. Thank you for all your crunching, your number crunching. And I think all the trustees or most of us watched a CSBA kind of a state legislature review. And everyone has to watch this because it was Wendy Boyce twin talking about maybe such, it's kind of fluffy, all kinds of crazy language, minutia, it's really not her language. It's the state budget. And so you get a better understanding that it is tricky. This is not a business world budget. It's as soon as you've printed the paper, it's old. It's old news. So you're always kind of chasing your tail. So I appreciate your work.
Okay, thank you.
So we're moving on to the agenda of board action items. So 11.1, we have hybrid learning plan for grades preschool through 6th grade.
So 11.1 and 11.2, we promised our community that we would keep these on action until we return to a 5-day-a-week return for school full time. And so at this point, I would say that 11.1 is no longer necessary. You can't really vote on it because school's out right now. That vote that we had taken at the time really pertained to the 2020-21 school year. So the need for this has expired. We didn't want to remove it from the agenda without informing the public about the why. So that's why it's on right now, because we made that commitment that we would keep it on. So at this point, there is no action to take because we aren't in school. The tier system has been dismantled, and we have to wait for new orders coming into us in August should things change. But as of right now, we are returning full time unless something changes, which could totally happen. But as of right now, the plan is to return to school 5 days a week, full days in August on August 18th. So there's no action for you to take on this. So point of order, I don't know if we table it or I'm not sure how to do that piece.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Wendy, do you have any words?
I think you can probably vote to permanently remove it. I don't know if it probably requires that.
To pull it.
Because we've been tabling it. And now I think you would just vote to discontinue including it in the agenda.
So do I have a motion for 11.1 and 11.2? Do
you need to do them separately because they're two different actions?
We could, yeah. 11.1, pending any order from the state. I mean, if something were to happen, but at this point, doesn't look like we need to have this on our agenda.
Well, it's old. So the tier system is gone. Mm-hmm. And this really pertained to the 2021-22 school year, and that's done.
Okay. May I have a motion for 11.1?
I'll move that we remove the 11.1 hybrid learning plan for grades preschool through grade 6.
I'll second the motion.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
So moved. 4-0. Very good. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Motion carries.
So 11.2 is the same situation for grades 7 through 12, their hybrid learning plan. May I have a motion?
I'll move that we remove item 11.2 hybrid learning plan for grades 7 through 12.
I'll second.
Very good. Thank you, Scott, for a second. And roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I guess technically you could have done it as removing it from the agenda prior to approving the agenda, but since that didn't happen, I think what you did made the most sense.
Right. And we wanted to have it so we could speak on it a little bit more instead of bogging down the beginning of the meeting. So 11.3, although before I move on, I don't know if this is the appropriate part, but really thank the staff and the support staff, teachers, everyone in the community getting us through this crazy time, the hybrid learning, seeing a little bit of the other side, but it's been a unique year. And I just hope that everyone can refresh and kind of unplug a bit and rest those eyes, because this mode of communication and education is challenging just because of the technology, not the people. You could put any one of our teachers in a closet with one old 1970 book and the kids would learn and thrive. So this is just about this mode of education was difficult. So thank everyone for their work. DOs off, everyone that's part of the district, everyone's work and effort when asked and called upon performed for our students. So thank you very much. So 11.3 is CIF representative designation for 2021-22. Consider approval of the 2021-22 designation of CIF representatives for Fort Bragg Unified School District.
We do this every year, and typically it's in June or August. With all the CIF designations, it requires board approval. So you see on your handout who the designees are: Tim Anderson, Adam Kubo, Bruce Triplett, Jamie Alexander. So they go in order for who the representative will be, and then the alternates going down the line. So these are the only people who can represent Fort Bragg Unified at CIF meetings.
And so does normally the athletic director also on this list, but right now that's not filled? Is that
correct? We have that position remains open.
Okay. So any one of these individuals could attend this meeting?
Yes, and both Mr. Anderson and Mr. Kubo have indicated that if the district's in a pinch, that they'll help out.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the board, or may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Very good. Roll call to approve.
I know that Scott made a motion, but I don't know if he said the words.
Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion for the approval of the recommended individuals for 2021-22 CIF representation to the league.
Thank you.
Yes.
And second was Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Very good. So moved at 4-0. The next item on the agenda is Board Policy 6163.4, Student Use of Technology and Acceptable Use Agreement and Release of District from Liability, Students. So we're considering approval of the proposed budget along with the agreement and the exhibit for guidelines for replacement of devices and use of technology.
So we have on the line our fearless technology director, Ari Rule.
Welcome.
Board of Trustees.
The most significant thing here is the attachment, the exhibit. that outlines the responsibilities.
And this is something that we discussed at a prior meeting we didn't have clear parameters of replacement cost of wear and tear that was extra use. So do we have a lot of need for this RE rule? Do you have a lot of backup or a lot of work before you to repair?
I'll try to make this as short as possible. Basically, this goes back to my first meeting when we were talking about someday we would have one-to-one carry model, and now we're doing that. We got shoved into it, so we didn't really have a lot of time to prep for proper guidelines and an agreement for it. And so I checked into a ton of other school districts and pulled together what I thought we needed here at the district. It's similar to Willits and Ukiah, but it's got some differences. We're a different place.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions for RE rule? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
I'll move we approve item 11.4, board policy 6163.4, student use of technology and acceptable use agreement and release of district from liability. Students.
Very good. Second, and that includes the exhibit. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ari, and your team for getting us through this year. It was pretty seamless from where I was sitting, but I know there wasn't very many days that people weren't connected, so that's pretty impressive. And I hope that you're able to restore over the summer, including yourself. and thank you for all your work and your department.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next item.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Ari.
The next item on the agenda is substitute teacher compensation scale.
So we know that we are going to have difficulties getting our substitute teachers back. And so we want to create an incentive to get them back. So what we're presenting to you is a scale to help incentivize our substitute teachers to return and then also to work for more than a few days. So for teachers who work 1 through 5 days, we'll compensate them at a rate of $125 a day. Prior to the pandemic, that compensation rate was $120 a day. Mm-hmm. On day 6 through 10 through the school year, if they hit their 6th day, then they'll earn $150 a day. That is a 20% increase. Then going from day 11 forward for the rest of the school year, they'll earn $175 a day. So this is a significant increase over what they're doing right now, over what we're doing right now. And it's a significant increase for our substitutes to incentivize returning. So we bring this before you from the board for your approval and ask that you consider it.
Board members, do you have questions? So my Trustee Mattson.
I don't really have a question, but I think this is a good idea and much needed to get some pretty valuable pieces of our puzzle all put together.
And is this based on a 6-hour day or a 7-hour day?
It's just based on a substitute teaching day. So if you go to Redwood, that day could be a little bit different. Okay. If you go to the high school, it could be a little bit different. And
so was there discussion on another mode of a scale, and this is kind of the best fit? And yeah.
We talked about this at ADCO quite a bit, and the Administrative Council. We talked about doing an hourly rate so that if you're at the high school and it's a longer day, that you would get a little bit more. But there are pros and cons to it. the high school for some substitutes would say are easier because the kids are older. Some people would say Redwood's easier because it's a shorter day and the kids are younger. But some people would say, are you kidding me? The little kids, they're way tougher. So it kind of goes all over the map about the pros and cons with all of the grade levels on all of our sites. We felt that it would be best, rather than doing a nickel and dime kind of effect where we're looking at an hourly and how to increase that what made more sense would be to look at this as we've been paying our substitutes, which is a kind of a daily rate. Mm-hmm. And then making that daily rate increase commensurate for the days that are invested by our substitute teachers. So if we have someone who only comes in for 5 days, they're still getting more than what we paid in 2019. And if they can make it to day 6, it's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And then if they make it to day 11, that's even better. And day 11 is, you could get there if you substitute more than 1 day a month.
Very good.
And then the nice thing about this, we're hoping, is that if somebody gets a call from another district on the same day as this one, they'll say, you know what, I already have 6 days in there. I'm going to get more if I take that one. So that's what we hope the incentive will be.
Okay. Thank you for trying to be equitable and addressing the pay scale, which I know wasn't positive.
Well, and just so you know, I'm putting in a plug with every one of our Fort Bragg High alumni who just graduated with a degree, encouraging them to take their CBEST or submit their SAT scores to waive the CBEST so that they can get a 30-day emergency credential and sub for Fort Bragg Unified if they're not sure where their sales will take them next. So just a little plug. It's a great job opportunity. You start paying into STRS and PERS now, even though you're not vested, but it's all a little bit of time that'll count.
Okay, very good. Seeing no other questions, may I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve item 11.5, substitute teacher compensation scale.
I'll second the motion.
Trustee Mattson seconds. Roll call, please.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. So move 4-0. So 11.6 is the next item. It's public disclosure of collective bargaining and other agreements and ratification of actions needed to fund. And it's considering, this is going to be Superintendent Walker presenting.
It's actually going to be Wendy Boyce presenting.
Okay. I looked at the cover sheet this time and was wrong.
Yeah. So the agenda item does read that disclosure of all related proposed salary schedule changes and ratification of actions needed to fund these agreements. And one of the reasons there are so many changes to salary schedules is there are many that are linked together. And the other piece is that just the certificated bargaining unit has 5 schedules all of its own. So then, because the administrators are tethered to a cell on the teacher's salary schedule, theirs automatically changes as well. And then we've presented a change to the confidential salary schedule because the confidential classified group isn't a bargaining group per se, but generally anything that impacts the classified group as a whole, we also give them a sort of Me Too clause. And so this is applying the same 30 cents and a step to their salary schedule as along with the regular classified salary schedule. And then we are fortunate enough to have quite a few administrators who've been in the district for nearly 10 years or even more than 10 years. And our schedules have never needed to go beyond 10, but now we, like I said, we are fortunate enough to have some long-term administrative staff. And so we're recommending that these schedules be taken out to 15 years. So those are that's in a nutshell what's gone on. But this whole packet is required to be prepared for the county. I sent it to them last week to look over. I haven't gotten feedback yet, but it's clear that we can afford it. So I'm not worried about them biting back too much on it. That third year out, there is deficit spending, but there's clearly enough reserve and enough time to make any structural changes that we needed. And I believe I mentioned that in the packet. So the first page is just the numbers. You know, what would it have looked like without these agreements? What is the effect of the agreements? And then the additional increase over the next 2 years, which is really just the incremental increase of step and column. The next 2 pages are explanations for different pieces. It goes through exactly what was negotiated, what was agreed on, and the justifications for some of the other cost changes.
So it looks like you also have psychologists and counselors that are tied to this.
Right, because that's what I said. The certificated bargaining unit is made up of teachers, special ed teachers, counselors, psychologists, and speech language pathologists.
Okay.
And all of them are tied through a formula to the teachers.
And school counselors.
And the counselors. Didn't I say counselors?
Yes.
I thought I did. Oh, maybe. Anyway, so once you change the teacher salary schedule, those factors bleed out to all of those other schedules. It's either a proration of days and a factor, or just days, or just a factor, but each one of them is tied. And so we have to present the new schedules to you for approval before the county will allow us to put them into our system. And then the other piece that's a cost increase that is worked into here is the extra step for some of our longer term classified employees, because they have been frozen for the last 5 years while we worked through this agreement to get to $15 an hour on the salary schedule. And so they stayed in their place on the schedule while we added money to the schedule. So the impact of that now is we have people who have been here for 5 or 6 years who are still sitting on step 3. And if we have somebody come in with a little bit of experience and they can get hired at step 3, it felt unfair for them to be at the same place as somebody who has been with the district for 5 or 6 years. So we're moving them an extra step in order to honor the time that they have been here beyond people who are just being hired now.
Okay.
And so the effects of that are in here as well. And then again, there's another page where it outlines the start, the changes, and then the end. And then there's the multi-year projection that is very much like the one you have in your packet for the budget. And those numbers all agree. And then there are questions about the reserves, and we certainly have plenty of that. And then I just noticed a little typo there. There's a rule that was passed a few years ago about districts, if we are in test something, I forget what it is, that we're not allowed to have a reserve more than 10%. The one good thing about being a small district is we're exempt from that because we have less than 2,500 students. So we're allowed to have, without too much justification, we're allowed to have reserves greater than 10%.
Okay.
So all of these things are, have, like I said, have been put together and sent to the county for their blessing, hopefully. And it's a requirement to basically disclose all of the impacts, all of the changes as you ratify the agreement.
So this is improving our salary schedules and we can afford it.
Yes. Yes. Hopefully it will help with recruiting and retention.
Great. So board members, do you have questions for Wendy Boyce? And Scott, we can't see. Okay, there you are. Say we can't see you. Do you have any questions? Okay. So seeing no questions, do we have public comment?
No, there's no public comment.
Okay. Very good. So may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve item 11.6, public disclosure of collective bargaining and other agreements and ratification of actions needed to fund.
I'll second.
And Mary, thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Matson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
So move 4-0. So 11.7 is the next item, Resolution 2104, budget transfers. And this is something that we do connected to the budget.
It's every year. It basically authorizes me to make the budget transfers that we need in order to close out the year and produce the budget for next year. And those involve things like transferring into the board required reserve, transferring into any funds that need a contribution from the general fund, and any other cleaning up of funds that need to be done.
So Vice President Makla, would you read the resolution before we ask for a motion?
Yes. Okay, whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District will need to make year-end budget transfers, now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District authorizes the chief business officer or superintendent to make such transfers as may be needed. The foregoing resolution was passed and adopted by the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District of Mendocino County, State of California, at a regular meeting held by said board on the 17th day of June, 2021, by the following vote.
Very good. May I have a motion?
I'll move to, go ahead, Scott.
I was actually going to ask a question, if I may.
Sure.
So at any point, do we get to see a list of all the transfers that were made? Or
I can certainly provide you with one if you'd like.
I mean,
to
is it
see
ever posted I don't know. I mean, is it ever?
No, not really. They actually kind of have, and I was a little bit incorrect there. The next item deals with interfund transfers. This is transfers inside the general fund that, for instance, moving money from the general fund to shore up special ed. And you see it in the contributions on the financial statements. I mean, on the budget sheets that you have, the bottom section of it has a section where it shows the contributions and the total amount that's going to be, or that's budgeted to be transferred from the unrestricted side to the restricted side. And they're laid out at the bottom with what they are made of. So I am more than happy to share that with you. The thing is, there are hundreds of them that happen ongoing during the year as we get more information, or as we move somebody from this resource to that resource, or we decide to open up a position in a resource. Then we have those are all budget transfers. So
so let me ask you this: is kind of budget transfer. So we approve a budget every year, right? And like it said earlier, we could approve it, and then the next day something happens and it's totally different, which is why we need these transfers. Does it take some sort of board action to initiate these transfers, or can they happen?
No, they happen kind of as needed. And this is why you give me permission to do it as needed, so that I don't have to bring every one of them to you, because if I did, nothing would get done here until the end of each month. And so we would go insane if we brought every one of them to you for overall approval. Where you do see the impact of them is on the budget to actuals that get presented in between the interim reports. I usually have a breakout of why the budget changed and the significant things. I don't go into every nickel and dime of budget transfers, because sometimes it is just that, nickels and dimes, just to balance things.
Okay.
So there are various times during the year where you see the impact of them.
Okay.
So and I try to bring to your attention when they're significant.
Very good. Thank you for your question, Trustee Snyder. With that, is there public comment? Since this is great information. Okay. So are we ready for a motion?
Board Resolution 21-04, authorization for 2020-2021 budget transfers.
In a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mary. Roll call?
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item is Resolution 2105, interfund transfers.
And this is a similar annual authorization to transfer money between funds if it's needed. For instance, if we did need to make a contribution to the Nutrition Services Fund, that's an interfund transfer. Transferring money into the board required reserve is an interfund transfer. Trying to think of what else we do regularly. We don't do much else regularly. Those are the main areas. Earlier in the year, you approved a transfer from our self-insurance fund that we no longer needed, and we transferred that into the special reserve fund. So that's an interfund transfer. And there have been a few little things where we've closed out some funds that we're no longer using that had 35 cents in them, or a few dollars left in them from after the fact interest amounts that had been posted. So those are interfund transfers, but the most significant ones are usually between the Nutrition Services and General Fund and the Board Reserve and General Fund.
Very good. Vice President Makala, can you read Resolution 2105, please?
Yes, the authorization for the 2020-21 interfund transfers. Whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District will need to transfer money between funds. Whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District has the need to transfer revenues and expenditures between funds. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District authorizes the chief business officer or superintendent to make such transfers as may be needed. The foregoing resolution was passed and adopted by the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District of Mendocino County, State of California, at a regular meeting held by said board on the 17th day of June, 2021 by the following vote.
Okay, very good. Is there public comment? Okay. And if there are no questions, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve item 11.8, Resolution 2105, interfund transfers.
In a second.
I'll second.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item, the last action, is 11.9, Resolution 2106, interfund temporary cash transfers.
Again, this is an annual authorization were it to be needed to shore up a negative cash balance in a fund, to temporarily transfer money from another fund to keep it positive until such time as revenues come in. And this could have been something we would have had to use this year had we not had sufficient cash because of the deferrals moving forward. I'm not anticipating that we will need to do that this year, but it does authorize us to do it should we need to.
Okay, so it looks like I will have Vice President Makala read, but I think there might be a duplicate line in it, so we might need to. Looks like it's repeating the or in the following.
Yeah, I see it. But okay.
Yeah, read without that.
Yes, I will make every effort. Okay, authorization for 2020-21 interfund temporary cash transfers. Whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District General Fund may experience temporary cash flow needs. Whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District has other funds available to provide temporary transfers to the general fund. Whereas Education Code Section 42603 states, the governing board of any school district may direct that monies held in any fund or account may be temporarily transferred to another fund or account of the district for payment of obligations. The transfer shall be accounted for as temporary borrowing between funds or accounts and shall not be available for the appropriation or be considered income to the borrowing fund or account. keep looking for the area where it's duplicate. Amounts transferred shall be repaid either in the same fiscal year or in the following fiscal year if the transfer takes place within the final 120 calendar days of a fiscal year. Borrowing shall occur only when the fund or account receiving the money will earn sufficient income during the current fiscal year to repay the amount transferred. No more than 75% of the maximum of monies held in any fund or account during the current fiscal year may be transferred. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District authorizes the chief business officer or superintendent to make such transfers as may be needed to facilitate cash flow. The foregoing resolution was passed and adopted by the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District of Mendocino County, State of California, at a regular meeting held by said board on the 17th day of June, 2021 by the following vote.
Very good. Do we have public comment? No.
No, we do not.
Okay. Otherwise, if there are no questions from board members, if we can make a motion to approve with the one revision.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-06, authorization for 2020-21 interfund temporary cash transfers with the one change as stated.
And a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Mattson, thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Very good. So that completes our action items for this evening. And if next meeting we can reflect the self-evaluation tool, it didn't make it to this meeting, but we wanted to get that on the action item for this year for the board self-evaluation. So if we can just make a note of that for the 23rd. And so we have one item in information and discussion, which is in-person board meetings and in-person public comment. And I believe Superintendent Walker will present.
So I would like to have a discussion about returning to live in-person board meetings in room 306 at Fort Bragg High School. In order to do that, I believe all of us are going to have to be masked to do it. I don't want to have to go through the process of asking people for their vaccine card. If folks don't want to be masked, we can open the windows and they can stand outside. The door will be open and they could still hear. We'll have the PA going so that we can maximize voices. We'll probably have to turn it up a little bit. It's a little difficult to talk with the mask on to hear your enunciation and your words, but we can give it a good old home team try. So I would just say that it's time for us to return to in-person meetings, and I would like to see that happen in August.
Board members, questions?
So do all people in the room need to be masked?
I would say yes.
Because really the only options we have, because a school K-12 can't self-attest, so that's not an option. Otherwise, you'd have to look at a card or everyone's masked. I mean, that's really our only rules, because as a classroom setting, a teacher can't self-attest and keep their mask off. So I think, we have to be consistent with.
And if folks don't want to wear a mask, we'll have the doors and windows open. And like I said, they can stand outside under the walkway. So even if it rains, they can be covered and not be in the rain. But in order to get into the room, they'll need to have a mask on until things change again significantly. But as of right now, I don't feel comfortable with us meeting as a board with the K-12 restriction on masking in the classroom. I think we need to follow suit.
So is there any discussion at the OES meetings? Is this going to be reassessed in September, or is it not a complete final decision for August, or what are we looking at? Because if you're in the business world, you can self-attest or choose to have, all your folks masked.
There hasn't been a final decision in the last year and a half.
Yeah. Well,
that's why she's chuckling. You're probably thinking, why is Wendy laughing? So the difficulty is that the Brown Act has been extended so that we could continue in this mode. I would just, again, like to reiterate that we're asking our kids to come back to school. We're asking our staff to come back to school. Our summer school's up and running. We've got 20 kids in the classroom. I would like to see us return to in-person meetings. We can make that happen in August. I don't want to be the enforcer of, are you vaccinated or are you not vaccinated? It makes it very clean to just have all of us be masked. We're in the room. That's what our students and our teachers and our employees need to do. So let's follow suit. We can still have the meetings broadcasted, so folks can still view it on our YouTube channel. And if people want to provide live public comment, they'll have the opportunity to do so. If they don't want to wear a mask, they're welcome to stand outside and can still see the meeting live. And we can still have their comment presented, and someone can just relay it back into the microphone.
So the actual board meeting link, does that expires in September? What's of getting that kind of a virtual communication? So that'll eventually go away very soon.
So the board meeting email we can still maintain and keep to provide public comment if you'd like to do that. But then this would allow for the in-person public comment.
Right. I agree with you with the consistency. It doesn't make sense for us to be able to self-attest in a board meeting and have staff not be able to do that with a K-12. But it's super frustrating because just a month ago or 2 months ago, we couldn't even do this. And it's probably because of the tiering and all of the other things. But now it's okay for us to be in a room masked when we've been asking for that. So I don't think it's the board's desire to do this mode. It's just we've been told not to. But now you're saying that we're allowed to go into a boardroom and be masked.
And I would say it's because the tiered system has been dismantled. So to keep it clean, I would say for right now that I would like to do that in August, because I don't want to mix our I don't want our stakeholders to not know when the next board meeting is coming. We only have one more board meeting remaining. For that next board meeting, I think it should be in this venue because this is what we've been doing all year. Our YouTube channel is established. The board meeting email is established. So let's continue for this final meeting in this mode. The Brown Act has been extended to cover this type of venue. And then when we begin our fresh year in August, and I believe the meeting is August 19th, for that August 19th meeting, I would like to request that we have that meeting and hold that meeting live in room 306 at Fort Bragg High School in our normal place for the opportunity for our public to have live in-person public input. And we'll also maintain the email. So if folks want to continue providing public comment through an email, that they have that opportunity to do that as well.
Okay. Any objections or other comments? Any public comment? Okay, thank you. So that sounds like we're hearing that in the first meeting of the year in August on the 19th, we will meet in room 306 with masking for everyone.
Now, what I will say also is that if something changes, if something changes, then we can hold a special board meeting with 24-hour notice. We had to do that a number of times last summer. So at this point, I don't anticipate a need for us to hold a July board meeting. But again, we know that if we need to hold a special board meeting, we can convene a special board meeting with 24 hours notice.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, then we'll move to the other portion of our agenda, which is we're doing something new. We're putting our board member reports at 3.1, right before advanced planning and housekeeping. So do we have a trustee that would like to begin?
And that's 13.1.
13.1. Thank you. Trustee Mattson?
So I attended the final Dana Gray Parents Club meeting on June 8th. They're winding things down. They're planning for next year, getting people lined up. Seems like they're pretty on top of it. They've been doing it for many years, and I suspect they'll hit the ground running next year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Vice President Makala?
Yes, I attended the final Fort Bragg Middle School Parents Club meeting of the year, and they have some new officers and things, so that was good. I attended the Three Rivers board meeting last Tuesday, or just the other day. They're doing basically same kind of thing we're doing tonight, which is LCAP and budget and so forth. And I've been to all three first days of the first week of summer school because I've been taking my granddaughters and picking them up. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the staff after an incredibly tough year for everybody, people got really creative and came up with great ideas of classes to provide the kids. And everybody was so excited. And when you said joyous earlier, Diana, that's exactly what it was. There was just joy all over the place. And I'd say my older granddaughter is not a lover of school. She couldn't wait to go back the second day and the third day. And she's super excited and enjoying every minute. And again, I just wanted to say that, Becky, to you and whatever other staff came up with the idea of doing great fun activities mixed in with some much needed intervention and support for kids that were falling behind. It was brilliant. And, it's just been a great rollout. I think I'll knock on wood, I'm sure it's going to continue. So thank you.
And kudos to the summer school staff. There have been some, the first day was a little hectic. We've never had 300 kids in summer school before. We've usually had about 80, to be quite honest with you. So this is a significant jump in enrollment. Poor Jamie Alexander said, Becky, I can't be at the high school in Dana Gray at the same time. And so we pulled in a couple of people to help. So it will get smoother as we go along. I know that there's been some frustrated families, and we apologize for that. We're doing the absolute best that we can. So transitioning from school and then into summer school very quickly is not incredibly seamless when you are changing the rules on the number of students who are there. So thank you for saying that, Mary, and thank you to the staff.
Well, and I know for the staff that sometimes when you're on that side of it, it just is like, oh God, this isn't happening the way I wanted it to. And you're a little bit frazzled from the whole thing. But honestly, I didn't see any parent or kid that seemed upset. Everybody was absolutely thrilled to be there. So thank you.
That's a good reminder. Kids usually don't see that. Trustee Snyder?
Well, just really quick, it was just wonderful to go to the graduations, all three of them, and see people again and see people graduate and just be together again as a community. So it was very nice. Thanks for everyone who helped put that together.
I agree that was definitely a feel-good event, even with the rain. It just worked out just fine. I want to just give kudos to the spring sports that was successful. Kids really, it was good timing. They went back to 4 days a week, and I think sports came back. So they were able to erase all their frustration of the school year just in those few weeks. So I just thank all the staff that got that forward and families that drove, because that was a different condition to drive one student. Wasn't very good for the environment, but it sure was good for the hearts. FFA awards, that was really a touching event outside. She has a great group of kids. It's really rewarding to watch all that was continued throughout the pandemic with the animals. So they're gearing up, I think, for fair. So that was really fun to attend. And the high school scholarship night was another heartwarming event. That was the first in-person that I attended, and there was plenty of space in the gym. Everyone was spaced out, and I liked the layout. You could see the students very well, and it was well attended with students. So that was great, and I know a lot of work to produce. High school awards night was virtual, and that was fun to watch. And then I just, again, wanted to thank the class of 2021 parents for getting prom, all those extras that is hard in a normal year. But with all the hurdles, they were able to produce some fun for the kids. So I think they really appreciated it. It sounded like they had very little garbage or anything to pick up at the setting that was at all night party and the prom. So thank you everyone for making that event. This morning we attended the board chat and we had 2 administrators attend, and we waited. We put in a good 52 minutes waiting for public, but we were able to talk about the happenings in the district and looking forward to the new school year in the fall. And the last piece, I too appreciated all the graduations. And then Roger Coy's retiring, so there was a little drive-through before our high school graduation that I think a few of us separately attended. And he was very touched by us driving through and wishing him a great summer. But I do think we'll see him for a little bit longer at the meetings. So I don't know if we have any advanced planning suggestions for future meetings. I don't know if there's budget. I see Superintendent Walker's hand up, but we need to have a budget workshop in the future. Are we looking okay? What was your comment?
So I would like to ask for a special board meeting on November 2nd. And the reason I want to ask for a special board meeting on November 2nd is we are beginning to plan our benchmark reports to you as a board, and we're trying to make them timely. We're working with Kelly Smith on data analysis training for our teams. And so we've created a calendar for our reporting. And one of the things we'd like to do is that when we have the data and when we do the training on the analysis and then create the action plan based on that analysis, we'd like to make sure that we time that appropriately so that it comes to the board quickly so that the data isn't old. So the calendar that we've made, we have a professional development day on November 1st, which is no school for kids, but we will be meeting with Kelly on that day. She will be working with our teams, analyzing the data from our first benchmark, creating the action plan, and it would be lovely, instead of waiting until the regular board meeting the following week, to do that in a special board meeting on November 2nd so that it's timely.
Vice President Makala?
I have a comment and then a question. I'm just looking at November, and it says November 2nd is election day. I don't know if there's a lot of election information, things happening. And then that following Thursday, the 11th, is Veterans Day. So I don't know that I don't think we'll be having a regular meeting on the 11th.
It's the following week.
The following week. Okay. So, and you can do a meeting without me, but I'm actually going to be gone from October 24th to November 2nd. I'm flying home November 2nd. So I don't know if we could move it to the 3rd or the 4th.
So we can't, because on the 3rd and the 4th, and we talked about this at length, okay. So this is why I know we can't. Mm-hmm. On the 3rd, Laura Vieira and I are required to attend the AXA Leadership Conference that's happening in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Laura Vieira is the Vice President of Region 4. I'm the Region 4 Superintendent Representative, so we both have to be there on Wednesday night. And then the principals will be gone on the 4th and the 5th because we're going to the AXA Leadership Conference, and we have the sites all covered. So that's why the only day to do it is November 2nd, because we're meeting on November 1st. And then we don't want to wait till the 18th, because at that point, the data will be 3 weeks old.
Okay. We can't do it Monday the 8th. That's too late. That's up to, that's fine.
It's your meeting. It's your meeting. If I would just have to check in with the administrators to make sure that they're available. Again, the goal behind it was trying to make sure that the data was timely.
Right. Okay.
It's your meeting. You can.
No, it's totally fine.
Decide on the date.
It's totally fine. I just wanted to put that out there so that you know.
And you don't have to make a decision now. It's November.
Right, I was just going to say we could bring this back up for next Wednesday to decide, because we do have Trustee Babcock missing, and I don't want to have two. It's hard to predict the future, but I don't want her to be missing as well. but we could definitely look at the 2nd and the 8th, and then the most availability, because I understand that the timely, the data. And then with that, will there be something for the board to address, or it's just a disclosure and to let the public know what you're working on?
Just at that meeting, it'll just be a presentation of the benchmark data, where we are with our oral reading records and our ORR scores, how kids are reading. It'll give you an idea of where everybody landed. So it's that first benchmark that we typically do in a special board meeting sometime in November. So we haven't created those special meetings yet. We did sit down and create the benchmark calendar. So because it was fresh in my mind, I wanted to make sure that we put it out there.
Okay.
And so I can read it on the plane too. If that's what it is, that'll be great travel reading.
So I will, what I'll do to move this along is I will email Trustee Babcock and check in with her, and then I'll have a report for you on the 23rd. I'll make sure to bring it up. Okay. So do we have any other issues that we would need to put on calendar for a special? Do you foresee any budget workshops that we need, or we're going to be okay this next school year?
It doesn't sound like the legislature and the governor are terribly far apart on things. So I'm not anticipating any huge shifts like we had last year in the difference between the May revise and the final budget. So no, I don't see a need for it.
Okay. And any other announcements or reminders other than what's on the calendar here? That we have the next meeting is Wednesday, June 23rd, 6 p.m. And that'll be the final vote for the budget for the year, and then the 3-year LCAP for this year. And then we have a July 5th holiday for all sites. And then we're back to school in the fall, full-time, August 18. And then sometime over the summer, we'll have an online, all the pre-registration will be done by Parent Square emails. Is that right?
And we should mention that June 25th is also Fort Bragg sites will be closed.
Yes, June 25th is Juneteenth, the new federal holiday. So do we have any other reminders? Otherwise, we will reconvene on Wednesday, June 23rd.
Motion to adjourn at 8:03 p.m.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Very, any objections? So adjourned at 8:03.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Dave.
Bye.
Thank you, Nate.